Every strike gets me closer and closer to a home run. That is the way Babe Ruth looked at striking and striking out. He was known on and off throughout his days as the home run king and the strikeout king. Hank Aaron many times had those same, I guess one's an accolade and the other is not so good. But those guys were swinging for the fences. They were all in. I hope you're all in your practice trading each and every day. How long will it take you to master these charts? It'll take as long as it takes, but guess what? As soon as you master the charts, the world is your oyster. Don't worry about how long it takes, but worry about mastering them. Spending 10 to 15 minutes each and every day, you can do it. Patreon members, Charting Crypto. I recorded it this afternoon just for you. We'll release it later to everybody else, but I would encourage our Patreon members to check it out. I emailed it to you, plus I downloaded it at the Patreon site, as I do both Charting Crypto and our 20 weekly vertical crossovers, which will come out tomorrow night. If you want to always have something to trade, then support us over at Patreon, and we'll send you 20 weekly vertical crossovers every week, so you'll always have something to practice trade. Now, let's jump into these charts. What do we see happening? Well, as we look at the weekly, on the S&P 500, we have a green up candle that's forming above that 50-period moving average line where things tended to just sort of stop when we ended the week of January the 28th. Last week, green spinning top, and then this week, green open box candle. Wick on the bottom, just a little one, taller one on top. Price percent oscillator flat, derivative oscillator losing downward momentum. 2-day chart getting closer to crossing over, going up. Has not happened yet. This latest candle was the Monday, Tuesday. This is the Wednesday, Thursday. We'll wait for it to finish drawing, and we might have a 2-day crossover going up. Doesn't mean it's us jumping into an up trade because the weekly is still down, but it can mean that things are getting ready to change, perhaps, when that weekly crosses. And typically the 2-day precedes it. Sometimes they cross together. It's not happening this time. We see on the half-day derivative oscillator heading up, price percent oscillator pulling away from the red signal line. Up in the morning, about the same. In the afternoon, nice to see. Let's go on to the Qs. What do we see on the NASDAQ 100? We see it up, booming up today, over 2%. We see a green spinning top for the week. That shows you how much down movement we had over those 4 weeks as down movement accelerated. Price percent oscillator, though, is losing a lot of that downward momentum. Derivative oscillator losing some downward momentum, too. On the 2-day, perhaps if we have another big up booming day, you could have a crossover at the end of the market when this candle closes on Thursday. Hadn't happened yet. That was preceded by 4 days of sideways sliding. Still hasn't reached the high that it reached on that 2-day candle from Tuesday, Wednesday of last week, the 1st and the 2nd of February. So we'll see where things are going. That derivative oscillator has switched to green, and the half-day very similar to the S&P, a little higher in the afternoon there. Price percent oscillator, derivative oscillator heading up. So stocks are smoking. Let's see what's going on with 20-year bonds. Up just a little bit, 0.19%. The smallest gainer we see for the day. Still lots of downward pressure. Price percent oscillator, derivative oscillator heading down. We see price movement well below the 2-day and the weekly. We go to the 2-day chart. A green, solid green candle, not reaching the lows in the past over that prior 2-day candle. So that's why you're seeing that solid green, the slowdown in the down movement. Derivative oscillator still gaining downward momentum. Price percent oscillator losing a little bit of that sideways slide. Half day, we can see where things bottomed back on Tuesday the 8th in the morning, and then sort of gaining a little bit Wednesday morning, and then sort of losing it Wednesday afternoon. Derivative oscillator losing downward momentum. Price percent oscillator about flat. Still lots of downward pressure in bonds. We'll see how they continue to develop during the week. What do we see on gold? Gold up for the day 0.34%, bouncing off that red signal line, pulling away from the signal line. Price percent oscillator heading up. Derivative oscillator that had been losing a lot of momentum is oscillating up again. We have a green open box candle forming. That's nice to see. Hasn't hit the previous highs, but moving up. On the 2-day, we can see again where we have 3 days of nice up movement, trying to cross over. We'll see if that ends up occurring on Thursday. Derivative oscillator still negative, so we'd like to see both of those crossing together. And we look at the half day, and we can just see, up movement for several days, and that's nice to see. Derivative oscillator gaining, price percent oscillator heading up. Looking nice on gold. I love seeing gold take off. I'd like to see it moving faster and higher, but it's moving. Lastly, we'll go to Bitcoin. Bitcoin up for the day 1.52%. And what's the week looking like? Well, it's the first green open box candle we have seen since the topping back on the week ending the 12th of November of last year. Price percent oscillator is a little more than flat. Derivative oscillators negative, losing downward momentum. It's good to see a green open box candle forming, even though it's a small one. What do we see on the 2-day going into, again, hopefully this will, on Thursday, we'll see even a bigger candle forming, but we did have that 2-day crossover going up back on Tuesday the 8th. Derivative oscillator gaining upward momentum, price percent oscillator heading up, pushed through that weekly trend line quite nicely. Good to see. We'll continue to keep our eye on Bitcoin. Now, just because the 2 days crossed over doesn't mean everything has changed. Of course, we're waiting for that weekly. It gives us plenty of time to ride that up. You don't have to get panicked and sell the farm to jump into Bitcoin right now. You want to be smart about it. What do we see going on the half-day chart? We see the derivative oscillator losing some momentum. We see, again, we had red open box candles yesterday, but that up movement continued today. So again, good to see Bitcoin getting a little bit of steam, a little bit of wind back in its sails. We'll see how that continues to go. And again, when you look back at the charts, you can see there's plenty of time to jump in and ride that Bitcoin train. Also warning bells, when to get out when things are sliding back a little bit with that 2-day chart, and then when to get back in and ride it up. And when to get out when that big crash started occurring. That's the value of knowing how to read charts. That's what it's all about, is knowing what's going on with price movement. Technical analysis is what we do. Financial analysis or fundamental analysis is knowing what the book value is, what something's worth on the books. But in the real world, that price can fluctuate quite often based on what? The emotions of fear and greed. That's what we try to figure out on a daily basis. You can do this, my friends. Stick with us. Again, appreciate all the Patreon support. We do this for free every day for you. If you appreciate what we do, then help us cut some of the cost of pushing all this out to you every day. It is not inexpensive to do, and we do appreciate all of our Patreon supporters, and we do everything to give back to you much, much more than your cost that you give to us. That is with our once a month live question and answer call-in session, our once a week 20 weekly vertical crossovers, and of course our charting crypto. And we just appreciate you guys. God bless, my friends. All the best from the whole team at Charting Wealth World Headquarters.